Welcome to HRP Clarity. Subscribe now and stay updated. Let's watch the video.
There's been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for The Apprentice or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The tension in the Senate hearing room was palpable as Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas took her turn questioning FBI Director Kash Patel. What unfolded was one of the most intense exchanges we've seen in recent congressional hearings. Crockett didn't hold back, systematically dismantling what she perceived as Patel's qualifications and performance, while highlighting what she considers dangerous failures in the FBI's current priorities. Her opening statement set the tone immediately, establishing that she wasn't there for pleasantries or political theater. She came prepared with facts, documents, and a clear mission to hold the director accountable. The question is, was her approach justified, or did she cross a line? What do you think about starting a hearing with such direct confrontation? Crockett began by establishing a crucial fact that many Americans might not know. FBI Director Christopher Wray, who preceded Kash Patel, was actually appointed by Donald Trump himself. This detail becomes important because it frames the entire political context of the current situation. She acknowledged that she takes issue with many of Trump's appointments, particularly those to critical positions like the FBI directorship. But here's where things got really interesting. Crockett made a bold claim that Patel is the least qualified FBI director in the entire history of the agency. Her reasoning? He's the only director who never served with the FBI before being appointed to lead it. Think about that for a moment. The person running the nation's premier law enforcement agency had no prior experience within that agency. Do you think prior FBI experience should be a requirement for the director position, or can outside leadership bring valuable perspective? The representative didn't stop at questioning qualifications. She directly stated that Patel is a failure and suggested it's time to say goodbye to his leadership. This is extraordinarily strong language for a congressional hearing, even in our current polarized political climate. Crockett referenced what she called Patel's performance for his boss, seemingly referring to an exchange with Senator Booker the previous day, suggesting that Patel was trying to save his job through theatrical displays. The underlying message was clear. She believes Patel is more concerned with political survival than effective law enforcement. But was this characterization fair, or was Crockett herself engaging in political theater? It's worth considering both perspectives here, don't you think? One of Crockett's most serious allegations involved claims that even before confirmation, Patel was targeting career officials to facilitate what she called illegal firings. This accusation strikes at the heart of concerns about politicization of federal law enforcement agencies. She pointed out an irony that the cases Patel seemed most concerned about, those tied to Trump, actually came through Trump's own handpicked FBI director, Christopher Wray. This observation highlights the complex political dynamics at play. If Trump appointed Wray, and Wray's FBI pursued cases involving Trump, doesn't that suggest the system was working as intended, free from political interference? Or does it indicate something else entirely? What's your take on this apparent contradiction? The hearing took a deeply personal turn when Crockett addressed issues of safety and security. She stated bluntly that she doesn't know who feels safe in America except for white supremacists, and that as a black woman, she specifically doesn't feel safe. This statement wasn't just political rhetoric. It was a personal declaration about her lived experience in America today. She contrasted her approach with other colleagues, noting that while they had been nice to Patel, she didn't have the same demeanor. This was clearly intentional positioning, presenting herself as the one willing to speak uncomfortable truths. The question becomes whether this approach is more effective at creating change or if it risks alienating potential allies. What do you think is more effective in congressional hearings, measured diplomacy or direct confrontation? Crockett raised genuinely concerning points about threats against members of Congress. She noted that multiple colleagues on her side of the aisle have faced death threats and that someone actually attempted to kill one of her colleagues. Her statement that she lacks confidence the FBI under Patel's leadership would have caught those responsible is devastating. This isn't abstract criticism about policy differences. It's a fundamental question about whether the FBI can protect elected officials. She provided specific examples through what she called UCs, or unanimous consent requests, to enter documents into the record. These included reports about Republican Representative Ken Buck receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker, and another Republican lawmaker who received similar threats. Do you think her concerns about the FBI's ability to protect Congress members are justified based on these examples? Perhaps most striking was Crockett's account of a colleague whose wife was receiving anonymous, threatening phone calls to the point where she slept with a firearm, ultimately contributing to that representative's decision to leave Congress. This paints a picture of a climate of fear affecting our elected officials and their families. The representative then pivoted to what she sees as systemic failures under Patel's leadership. She referenced his testimony to the Senate, where he allegedly said it would take 14 years to fully staff the FBI. 14 years. Think about what that means for national security, for solving crimes, for protecting Americans. Can any organization function effectively while being that dramatically understaffed? And if this is accurate, shouldn't it be a crisis-level priority? Crockett also criticized the reallocation of FBI resources to immigration enforcement, essentially having FBI agents play what she called ICE agents on the streets. This touches on a broader debate about mission scope and resource allocation in federal law enforcement. Should the FBI, traditionally focused on federal crimes like terrorism, organized crime, and corruption, be involved in immigration enforcement? Or does this represent mission creep that dilutes effectiveness in core areas? She also mentioned that Patel is getting rid of the FBI's most qualified people, though she didn't elaborate on specific examples. If true, this would represent a brain drain that could take years to recover from. What's your opinion on whether the FBI should be involved in immigration enforcement, or should it stick to its traditional mission? The representative brought up what she clearly saw as a public relations disaster involving the apprehension of a suspect. She mentioned that Patel posted not once, but twice erroneously about catching someone, then wanted to take a victory lap when the suspect was actually turned in by their own parents after confessing online. This criticism cuts to questions about competence and honesty in public communications from the FBI director. If the FBI is taking credit for work that was actually done by vigilant parents, that's a serious credibility problem. Crockett's tone suggested she believes Patel is more focused on optics and pleasing what she called the apprentice, a clear reference to Trump, than on actual law enforcement effectiveness. Do you think FBI directors should be evaluated based on their public relations skills, or should results be the only measure that matters? One of the most serious allegations Crockett made involved what she described as domestic terrorism at historically black colleges and universities that occurred the day after the incident she previously discussed. She stated that HBCUs were targeted, yet she heard nothing from the FBI about what was happening. This raises critical questions about priorities and whether certain communities receive equal protection and attention from federal law enforcement. Her statement that black people keep asking how they ended up in this situation, while the numbers clearly show white supremacy is a problem, speaks to a perceived disconnect between FBI priorities and the actual threat landscape. She directly stated she's heard nothing from Patel that makes her believe he'll do anything about white supremacy, which she identified as leading to children being killed and shot, along with members of their communities being attacked while working or worshiping. These are extraordinarily serious allegations. Do you think the FBI's current priorities adequately address domestic terrorism threats, or is there a blind spot when it comes to right-wing extremism? At the heart of this issue is a simple question. Can Americans trust that federal law enforcement will investigate crimes and threats impartially, regardless of political connections? If FBI agents are hired based on their political affiliations, if they're fired for working on cases involving politically connected individuals, if career professionals with distinguished records are removed for political reasons, then the answer is no. We can't trust that system. And that's catastrophic for the rule of law. Justice depends on impartial investigation and prosecution. When law enforcement becomes a political tool, justice becomes a casualty. This exchange reveals the deep divisions not just between political parties, but about fundamental questions of justice, safety, and priorities in law enforcement. Crockett's critique wasn't just about Patel personally. It was about what she sees as systemic failures to address the most serious threats facing Americans, particularly communities of color. Patel's response emphasized results and metrics, suggesting that outcomes matter more than political criticism. Both approaches have merit, but they're talking past each other in some ways. The real question for Americans watching is this: what should we expect from our FBI director? Should they have prior FBI experience? Should they prioritize certain threats over others? Should they be measured primarily on statistics or on whether all communities feel equally protected? These aren't easy questions, and reasonable people can disagree. What matters is that we're asking them and demanding accountability from those who lead our most important institutions. What do you think the FBI's top priorities should be right now?